Hello guys, welcome to our channel. We post amazing revenge stories daily. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe to get daily notification. First story posted by you/justabigbrother. My parents have always favored my younger brother. I was by no means unloved. But it was blatantly obvious who they cared about more. I worked a part-time job to get my first car, but my brother got one as a present. It wasn't new, but was much newer than my car. It was the same with just about anything else, like clothes, video games and cell phones. I'm 18 and am taking a gap year before community college to work a full-time job and save money for tuition. But a while back I heard my parents talking about how much they were going to pay for my brother's tuition. I secretly recorded the conversation from around the corner, and then came out asking my parents why they were gonna pay for my brother's college, but not mine. They didn't notice my phone was recording, and just said that my brother needs more help. I asked how so when I wasn't getting any sort of scholarship, and he likely wouldn't either. Then I asked a few more questions about why things have always been this way. They got mad and my father told me that perhaps it's time I moved out, because they're sick of keeping a roof over my head. I pointed out I pay rent. But they didn't care. I left the room and in a fit of rage uploaded the video to 2 different social medias I have and ranted about how this is how my parents have always been. Well, a few hours my parents were pounding at my door. My dad was screaming at me about how I made them look bad. We fought some more and they left the room fuming. My grandparents contacted me later and said they were appalled, then came to visit with a lot of the family the next day. There was a huge family intervention, and my parents were made to sit on the couch and look at their feet while being told off. It was then I found out they'd been receiving money for years from my grandparents to help with family expenses. My brother looked like he didn't know what to do. So he sided with the rest of the family and said he's noticed how I'm treated as well. My parents gave me a huge apology that sounded forced. My grandparents have offered that I come live with them soon, and will cut off the monthly payments to my parents. My father told me I should have never told the rest of the family, and now won't talk to me, and my mother has been crying for days. So I'm starting to wonder if I went too far. So am I the a-hole for exposing my parents' favoritism? Update to the story. I decided to go ahead and call my grandparents to accept their offer to move in. During the phone call I asked them why there was monthly payments being sent to my parents. Turns out my parents were living beyond their means for a while because my mother quit her job to be a full-time stay-at-home mom. My grandparents decided to help out by sending them money monthly to help with my parents' mortgage, and also to set aside some of that money for college savings for both my brother and I that was to be split evenly. Turns out my parents only planned to put that savings towards my brother's college. And that's also how they bought his car as well. So from now on my parents are now on their own financially. Likely my mother will have to go back to work to help my dad keep up the mortgage. I confronted my parents and asked why they've always treated my brother as the favorite. Then asked if there was something I needed to know. Turns out there was nothing. Literally nothing. I'm not an affair baby. Not even an unplanned pregnancy. They just liked my brother more. I was mad as hell and we argued a lot before I left the room because I'd had enough. My grandparents showed up on Saturday with a moving truck. My parents were floored when we started bringing in boxes to pack. My father got in our way and I reminded him how he said that I should move out, so I am. My mother cried some more and said that my father was just angry in the moment when he said that, and they had been counting on my rent money to help with my brother's college fund. I asked if that meant he would never have had to pay rent like I did when he turns 18. My father then said that since I was taking a gap year to work, then my rent money could have helped my brother. Which means they never intended for him to get a job while going to college. My grandpa was enraged and confronted my father, saying he raised him better than this. He chewed him out saying he's never been more disappointed in him, and they will no longer receive any more financial support. Then said he'd disown them both if they ever tried to retaliate against me for exposing them. My father backed down and neither he or my mother said another word to me. I had a bit of an awkward conversation with my brother as we said our goodbyes to each other. And that was it. I just got in my car, waved and drove off. I'm now fully moved into my new room at my grandparents' house. It's a little smaller, but nice. And my grandparents are very welcoming. I'm going to keep working hard to move forward from here, and I appreciate everyone's support. Here are comments. My mom is the type who will praise my sister to me and praise me to my sister. For years I thought it only went one way, and that my sister was the spoilt/babied one. Which she was/still is, in many ways. But I had no idea that behind my back, my mom was saying some pretty shitty stuff to my sister, comparing her to me. When we were both adults, my sister and I got into an argument about favoritism, and she suddenly blurted out some of the shit my mom had been saying to her for years. Like when she struggled in college, my mom apparently told her, and here I thought I had two smart girls. Apparently it's just your sister. I'm so sorry this happened to you. My dad's parents were just like this for absolutely no reason either. I'm glad your grandparents have helped you move in with them. Kudos to you for trying so hard to buy your own car, etc. Edit. OP should look at the comments about his credit and his parents opening it in his name. These are very important. I was absolutely appalled and completely livid. My sister had been understandably taking out her feelings of inadequacy on me for years, and I'd never been able to figure out why she thought I was so above her with my degrees and academic success, when I've never felt that way a day in my life. In fact, I have long been jealous of my sister for making financially smarter trade school decisions, because she has way more money than I do and isn't struggling like I am. She owns a house, she has a new car, she's got money in the bank. I don't regret my choices because I wouldn't be happy with her path, and I know that deep down, but there certainly are a lot of tangible wins to her approach that I don't have. I've never felt better than her, nor have I ever looked down on her. I've been jealous, but also extremely proud of her. I thought she was doing way better than me, and thought that the whole family felt that way. But my mom, unconsciously or not, has played each other off our respective successes for years. There's been a lot of built-up resentment and competition between us that simply never needed to be there. I also was extremely pissed off to know that my hard-won successes were being used as a cudgel to beat my sister over the head with. It's so disrespectful. Now, my sister and I are working together to appreciate each other and compliment/be vocally proud of the other siblings' successes, different as they are. A lot of pain and resentment would have been spared if we hadn't spent almost a decade each thinking the other sister looked down on us and felt superior. It was never the case. My mother was like this with my sister and I. I always heard about how smart and talented my sister was, and of course she always only heard my mother talk about me. In our case there is such an age gap that it didn't lead to much resentment, but I never felt like I was good enough to her. Turns out my sister felt similar, and couldn't believe how much our mom talked about and praised her. This makes me miss my grandma. I have a stutter and my uncles used to bully me and make fun of me. One time my grandma heard about it, and she made hell. She have 7 sons and some with grandkids. I have never seen 7 grown men cry before. She made them apologize to me in front of their kids and wives. She didn't talk to them for 2 months, and they crawled back to her feet for mercy. I'm so sorry this happened to you. My dad's parents were just like this for absolutely no reason either. I'm glad your grandparents have helped you move in with them. Kudos to you for trying so hard to buy your own car, etc. Edit. OP should look at the comments about his credit and his parents opening it in his name. These are very important. Now getting ahead to our final story of the video, posted by you/It's Complicated 16. This one is long, so buckle in. One summer I was working as a server at a well-known pizza restaurant. It was in a small tourist town, so it was amazing money, and as a university student, that was all that mattered to me. This job was so horrible that I would go home wanting to quit, count my tips, and decide I could put up with it for one more day. The reason it was so horrible was because of the manager, Tracy. Tracy was hot-headed, irrational, a liar, a manipulator, and overall a terrible human being. I watched her terrorize the other servers and kind of kept my head down to avoid it. Examples of her being awful: she once screamed at me because the entire restaurant didn't have cutlery on the tables, because the restaurant physically didn't have enough, and she was too cheap to order more. I was in the middle of filling drinks for a table when she made me stop and go into the kitchen to run the dishwasher. She then yelled at me because that table didn't have full drinks. This all happened in front of a guest who ended up saying something to Tracy about her behavior. After Tracy left, the guest assured me that she was going to be reporting her once another server was running her food. Tracy physically grabbed the server by the arm and pulled her back into the kitchen because that server didn't run the ticket before hers. They got into a screaming match and the cops were called. The server sent me photos of her bruised arm the next day. Tracy played the cops like a fiddle and was like that never happened and batted her eyelashes. I'm not sure how she got away with that. My sister was the hostess and was only making $12 a week in tip out. The other servers and I did the math, and my sister should have been taking home $40 a night. Ironically, Tracy had a new boat and a new truck. My sister messed up, I don't remember how, and Tracy took me into the back of the restaurant to scream at me. We were out there for a full 15 minutes before the supervisor told her they needed me back. This supervisor was an angel, and she comes back into the story a bit. This was a while ago, and I'm sure I'll think of more, but for now I will continue with the story. Tracy's reputation in the town was awful. The locals would not eat there because of her. In a small community, everyone had a story about her. I would get sympathy when people found out where I worked. So that tells you just how bad it was. Supervisors told the franchisees about how bad the working conditions were, but every time they would investigate, she would turn into a completely different person. She was kind and helpful, and working for that side of her wasn't so bad. But when they weren't there, the working conditions were awful again. It seemed like they would never catch her in her natural element. The revenge part of my story began on my last day of work. We had a health inspection and failed, so I knew Tracy would be particularly awful that day. I looked at the angel of a supervisor and told her that if Tracy screamed at me, then I was walking out. The supervisor said she wouldn't blame me and didn't know why I had put up with it for so long. So anyways, Tracy gets in and of course she starts yelling at me until I start crying. I finished my last table and walked out, taking my sister with me. Down 2 staff members, the restaurant was in trouble. We drove by it 30 minutes later, and there was a lineup out the door because there was no hostess seating people. Tracy had to seat people and serve my section. When I got home, I messaged all the staff that had quit over the summer. I told them that I was whistleblowing and that they should too. The girl that was physically assaulted ended up writing a letter and sending photos of her bruised arm. My letter ended up being 2 pages long, single-spaced, and included everything I've mentioned, with emphasis on her having 2 different personalities when the franchisors were there. A few months later, my sister got a message from the dishwasher saying that Tracy got fired, and the angel supervisor took her position. Because of that, I decided to go back the following summer. I was hired immediately. While working there, I discovered the results of my actions. The restaurant was rated the lowest in the country under Tracy's management. This, coupled with the whistleblowers and the civilian complaints, resulted in serious investigation. I don't remember how high up in the company he was, but a higher-up ended up going to the restaurant under the intent that he was a new supervisor coming to help because she was short-staffed. He observed her behavior for 2 weeks. After the 2 weeks, he told her, "Here's the step-by-step plan of how we're going to fix the restaurant." Her response was, "Who the duck do you think you are?" I guess when he told her, the expression on her face was priceless. I wish I saw it. Anyways, she obviously got fired and is now working at a fast food pizza place in the same town. The place is always empty because the locals still actively boycott her. I know it was long, but thanks for sticking with me. Here are some comments. I had a manager that would cause people to walk out from my old job because he was known as a creep who would prey on young drunk girls, and he has been called out on it in public multiple times. He somehow still works there, and most people think it's because he has some sort of blackmail on the owner. My own dad has cursed him out in front of a full dining room before when he tried hitting on a drunk 20-something girl. He is in his 50s. I also worked in a restaurant with a shitty manager who liked to micromanage me and watch me very closely. That's good revenge and all, but just want to be that guy and point out that she probably wasn't buying a new truck and boat with an extra $28 per week. She probably just took out loans she couldn't afford because she is a piece of shit. I'm glad you did something instead of just quitting. You saved your coworkers and that restaurant. It's awesome that someone higher up took complaints seriously and did something about it. It always seems like the higher up you go, the less they care. This is the end of today's video. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked it, please don't forget to hit the like button and comment below.